My wife yelled that she wished I died instead of her ex, so I packed my bags while she slept. Never looked back. I'm a 33-year-old guy, and I truly believed love could survive anything. For most of my life. I was the kind of man who thought commitment meant weathering every storm, even when the thunder never seemed to stop. When I met Megan, I thought I'd finally found the calm I'd been waiting for. She was radiant, the kind of woman who made every room feel warmer just by smiling. Her laugh could drown out bad days, and her confidence drew me in like gravity. We met through a friend at a small get-together. From that night on, she was all I could think about. Our love grew fast, reckless even. Within a year, we were married. It wasn't perfect. We argued sometimes about money or my long work hours, but I always thought that was normal. I told myself every relationship has rough patches. I just wish you were home more. She'd sigh sometimes, tracing the rim of her coffee cup while I laced my work boots. I'm doing this for us, I'd tell her, so you don't have to stress. She'd nod, half smiling. But her eyes always looked somewhere else. It's like she was thinking about a life that didn't include me. I worked long hours as an electrician. Sometimes 14-hour days, climbing power poles under the scorching sun or crawling through dusty attics. I'd come home sore, hands rough, but the sight of her curled up on the couch made it all worth it. She worked from home as a graphic designer, headphones on, hair in a messy bun, surrounded by empty coffee mugs and color swatches. I used to pause at the door just watching her work, thinking, God, I'm lucky. Back then, I didn't notice how often she'd smile at her phone, or how quickly she'd lock the screen when I walked in. At the time, I just thought, she's busy. I didn't know then that love can sometimes fade quietly, one locked screen at a time. It started with the name Daniel. The first time I heard it, Megan was laughing over her phone during dinner. When I asked what was so funny, she said, "Oh, just an old friend from college. You wouldn't know him?" She brushed it off so casually that I didn't think twice. But soon, Daniel became a recurring character in our conversations. A story here, a joke there, always something about what he used to say or how he used to do things. At first, I told myself not to be insecure. Everyone has a past. But the more she spoke about him, the clearer it became that Daniel wasn't just some old friend. Her eyes softened when she said his name. I caught her scrolling through old Facebook photos once, pictures of the two of them at concerts, beach trips, birthdays. I didn't say anything then. I didn't want to be that jealous husband. One evening as we watched a movie, she sighed and whispered, "Daniel loved this one." My stomach dropped. I tried to joke it off. Should I be worried about this guy? She smiled faintly. Don't be silly. He's ancient history. But the way she said it, soft, almost nostalgic, told me he was untamed. Days turned into weeks. And suddenly, I couldn't go a day without hearing his name. Every little thing became a comparison. Daniel was more spontaneous. Daniel loved trying new foods. Daniel never forgot birthdays. It stung, but I kept my mouth shut. I convinced myself it was harmless reminiscing, that maybe she just missed her youth. Still, something deep in my gut whispered that Daniel wasn't a ghost from the past. He was a presence creeping into my marriage. I remember lying in bed one night, Megan's phone lighting up on the nightstand. A message preview popped up, just 3 words. "I miss you." She turned over, pulling the blanket closer. I stared at the glow of that screen, heart pounding, and realized sleep wouldn't come easy anymore. After that night, something shifted. Megan wasn't just distant. She was gone, in every way that mattered. She stopped greeting me at the door. Our dinner conversations became one-word exchanges. Even the way she said my name felt cold, like I was a coworker she barely tolerated. Her laughter, the one thing I used to crave hearing, vanished completely. Instead, there was silence. She'd sit at her desk for hours, staring at her screen, sometimes typing rapidly with that faint smirk I used to love. I'd ask, "Rough day," and she'd shrug without looking up. "Just busy." But I wasn't stupid. I saw how she tilted her phone away when I walked by, how she'd step outside for fresh air right after a notification buzzed. When I'd reach for her hand on the couch, she'd flinch just slightly, but enough to make me feel like an intruder in my own marriage. One night I tried to bring it up. "Megan, are we okay?" I asked quietly. She sighed, rubbing her temples. "You're imagining things, Mark. I'm just stressed. Is it because of work? Or something else?" Her eyes darted to the side, and her tone sharpened. "Why do you always assume something's wrong with you? Not everything is about you." I remember sitting there feeling like a fool for caring too much. The woman who once told me I was her safe place now looked at me like I was the problem. That night, I lay awake listening to her soft breathing beside me. The distance between us felt like an ocean, cold, silent, and endless. I wanted to reach out, to fix whatever was breaking. But part of me already knew. Love doesn't always end with screaming or tears. Sometimes it dies in whispers, in unanswered texts. In the quiet realization that the person beside you has already left. They just haven't walked out the door yet. It happened on a Tuesday night, the kind of night where everything feels ordinary until it suddenly isn't. Megan had gone to bed early, claiming a migraine. I was in the living room half watching a rerun when I realized she'd left her laptop open on the coffee table. Normally, I wouldn't snoop, but something in my gut, that quiet, sick instinct, told me to look at first. It was harmless. Design files, emails, invoices. Then I saw a tab with Daniel's name in the corner. My chest tightened. I clicked it. The chat window was open. Hundreds of messages, all recent. My hands went cold as I scrolled. They weren't just catching up. They were reminiscing, laughing, flirting. Megan wrote things like, "You always knew how to make me feel alive, and I miss how simple life was with you." Daniel replied, "It could be simple again." My heart pounded so hard it felt like my ribs might crack. Every line I read stabbed deeper. She told him things I thought were sacred. My work stress, my insecurities, the nights I cried after losing my dad. She called me emotionally distant, said I'd changed. She painted me like the villain in her story. I remember whispering to myself, "Why?" over and over, as if saying it would make sense of it. I confronted her the next morning. "Megan, who's Daniel to you, really?" She froze mid-sip of her coffee. "You went through my laptop." She snapped, eyes blazing. "Answer me," I said quietly. "Were you talking to him the whole time?" "You violated my privacy," she shouted. "I can't believe you'd do that." Not once did she deny it. Not once did she say she was sorry. She stormed out of the kitchen, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. I just stood there, gripping the edge of the counter. Realizing I'd lost something far bigger than trust, I'd lost the person I thought she was. The next morning, Megan came into the kitchen with puffy eyes and a trembling voice. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I don't know what I was thinking. I was just lonely." Her tears fell fast, perfectly timed, perfectly tragic. I wanted to be angry, but all I felt was exhausted. I'd spent the whole night replaying those messages in my head. Wondering where I went wrong? "I thought you said you blocked him," I murmured. "I will. I promise," she said, grabbing my hand like it was a lifeline. "I'll delete everything. I just need you to believe in me again." And because I was desperate to believe, I did. I told myself people make mistakes, that marriages could recover if both sides tried. I even deleted my own social media, thinking maybe, if I showed her my commitment, she'd do the same. For a few weeks, things looked better. She started cooking again. We watched movies, went for drives, even laughed like we used to. It felt almost normal, but normal doesn't last long when it's built on guilt. I began to notice the subtle shifts, the way she'd go quiet when I entered the room, or how her phone was now always face down. Once, I heard her whispering in the bathroom late at night. When I knocked, she said, "It's just my mom." But when I checked the call log later, there was no call. Asterisk, I tried to tell myself it was paranoia, that I was just traumatized from before. But deep down, I knew apologies from manipulators aren't bridges. They're traps. One evening, while we were eating dinner, I said softly, "You seem far away again." She smiled faintly. "You're imagining things, Mark." Then she picked up her phone, and the glow of that screen reflected in her eyes, the same glow that had once meant love. That night, I realized she didn't feel guilty for what she did. She only felt guilty for getting caught. A few weeks later, I came home from work to find Megan sitting on the kitchen floor, phone clutched in her hand, eyes swollen and red. For a moment, I thought something had happened to her family. But when she looked up at me, she said one name, Daniel. Her voice cracked. "He's dead, Mark. He died in a car accident last night." I froze. I didn't know how to respond. My wife was sobbing over another man, the man she emotionally cheated with, and all I could do was stand there, watching her fall apart. She buried her face in her hands, rocking back and forth, whispering, "It's not fair. He was such a good person." I knelt beside her, unsure whether to comfort or confront. I'm sorry," I managed to say, but the words felt foreign, empty. She leaned into me, shaking uncontrollably, and for a fleeting moment, I thought maybe this tragedy would close that chapter forever. Maybe grief would burn away whatever she still felt for him, but I was wrong. In the days that followed, Daniel's death consumed her. She barely ate, barely spoke, and cried herself to sleep every night. She started lighting candles for him, listening to old songs they loved, scrolling through photos like she was clinging to the last pieces of him. One morning, I found her at her desk, staring at a picture of him, whispering, "He understood me in ways no one else could." That sentence gutted me. I wanted to scream, "What about me?" But I stayed silent. I brought her food, checked on her, even called her boss to explain she needed time off. I did everything a husband should. But each act of kindness made me feel smaller, like I was filling in for a ghost she wished was still alive at night. I'd lie beside her, listening to her whisper his name in her sleep. And that's when I realized I wasn't her comfort anymore. I was her punishment for surviving. Grief can twist people into strangers. But what Megan became went beyond sorrow. It was venom. For the first few weeks, I tried to be understanding. I cooked for her, cleaned the house, let her grieve however she needed. But gradually, the sadness turned to something darker. She started snapping at me for the smallest things, leaving my shoes by the door, forgetting to replace the toilet paper, breathing too loudly while she watched old videos of Daniel one morning. I tried to gently take her phone away as she scrolled through Daniel's old social media posts, her eyes glassy with tears. "Megan, you have to stop torturing yourself like this," I said softly. She jerked her hand back. "Don't tell me how to feel. You didn't know him. I'm just worried about you." Her eyes filled with rage. "Of course you are. That's all you ever do. Pretend to care." The words hit harder than I expected. Pretend I'd sacrificed everything to keep her steady. But that night, things got even worse. We were eating in silence when I accidentally dropped my fork. The clatter startled her, and she slammed her hands on the table. "Daniel never did stupid things like that," she snapped. The room went dead quiet. My throat tightened. "Megan," I said slowly. "You can't keep," she cut me off, eyes burning. "Sometimes I wish it was you who died instead of him." The air left my lungs. For a long moment, I couldn't move, couldn't think. My heartbeat roared in my ears. She froze, realizing what she said, but she didn't apologize. She just turned away, muttering, "Forget it." I went to bed alone that night, staring at the ceiling, replaying her words over and over until they lost all meaning. The woman who once vowed to love me for life had just wished I didn't exist. And as I lay there in the dark, one truth began to take shape. Maybe I already didn't sing. After that night, something in me broke quietly without sound. I moved through our house like a ghost, avoiding her eyes, avoiding her voice. Megan, meanwhile, seemed to shed her grief and step into something colder, almost performative. She started hosting friends again, dressing up, pretending everything was fine. But there was still one name she couldn't let go of: Daniel. A few weeks later, she decided to host a memorial evening for him. I didn't argue. I just helped set up the living room, candles, framed photos, snacks. It felt surreal, decorating my own home for a man who'd once been the third shadow in our marriage. Her friends came, people who had known Daniel back in college. They greeted me politely, but I could feel their pity. It's like I was the stand-in husband, not the real one. When the toasts began, I stood in the back, arms crossed, trying to keep it together. Megan took a deep breath, her hand shaking slightly as she raised a glass. Daniel was my soulmate, she said, voice trembling. He understood me in ways no one ever could. The room went silent. I felt everyone's eyes flick toward me, then away. My chest burned, my hands numb. It wasn't just disrespect, it was erasure. After everyone left, the house was a mess of empty glasses and flickering candlelight. I asked her quietly, "Why would you say that?" She turned to me, mascara streaked down her cheeks. "Because it's true," she said. "Do you even hear yourself?" She glared through her tears. "You'll never be him, Mark. You never could." And then, as if to twist the knife deeper, she added in a broken whisper, "Sometimes I wish it was you who died instead of him." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood there, numb, feeling the last bit of love drain out of me. That was the moment I knew our marriage didn't just die. She killed it. In the days that followed, I barely spoke. There was nothing left to say. Megan moved through the house like I was invisible, humming as she made coffee, scrolling her phone on the couch, laughing softly at messages I didn't dare ask about. Every time I looked at her, I saw the woman who told me she wished I'd died. The words didn't echo anymore, they carved. I started going to work early and staying late just to avoid coming home. My coworkers noticed. "You all right, man?" one of them asked. I lied, like always. "Yeah, just tired." But the truth was, I was hollow. Every part of me that once believed in fixing things was gone at night. I'd lie awake next to her, watching her scroll through her phone until she drifted off. The glow from her screen would fade. The ache inside me wouldn't. That's when I started planning quietly, methodically. No confrontation. No screaming matches. Just leaving. I began packing small things first. My tools, important papers, some clothes I kept in my truck. Each item I took felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I even made a new bank account in secret, redirecting part of my paycheck. It wasn't revenge, it was survival. One evening, she asked why I'd been so quiet lately. "I'm just thinking," I said. "About what?" she asked without looking up. "About what I deserve," I replied. She smirked, like it was a joke, and went back to her phone. That's when I knew I could leave without guilt. There was no marriage left to save, no heart left to fight for. I didn't know the exact day it would happen, only that, when it did, I'd do it silently. No note, no goodbye. Just absence. It happened on a Thursday night. Megan had fallen asleep on the couch, phone still glowing faintly in her hand. The TV murmured in the background, but the house felt unusually still, like it was holding its breath. I stood in the doorway, watching her. For the first time in months, I didn't feel anger or heartbreak. I just felt done. Completely and peacefully done. I moved quietly, like muscle memory guiding me. I packed the last of my clothes, a few photo albums that still meant something, and the old watch my dad left me. Every sound, the zipper closing. The floorboard creaking felt like the end of a chapter I should have closed long ago. I walked into the kitchen, wrote a short note on the back of a grocery receipt. "You got your wish. I'm gone." No anger, no begging, just truth. I placed it next to her half-empty glass of wine and stood there for a long minute, staring at the woman who'd once been my everything. The moonlight through the window made her face look soft, peaceful, the same face I fell in love with. For a moment, I almost hesitated. But then I remembered her voice echoing through my mind. "I wish it was you who died." And whatever warmth I had left turned to dust. I slipped my bag over my shoulder, stepped outside, and locked the door behind me for the last time. The night air was cool, sharp, and clean. I could smell the faint sweetness of rain in the distance. Freedom. As I started my truck, I looked at the house through the rearview mirror. No lights flickered on. No one came running after me. It was like I'd already been gone for a long time, and for the first time in years I didn't feel trapped. I felt weightless. I drove through the night with no destination. Just the hum of the road beneath me and the echo of silence I hadn't heard in years. Around 3 a.m., I stopped at a rundown motel on the outskirts of town. The room smelled like dust and cheap soap, but it was quiet, painfully, beautifully quiet. I dropped my bag on the floor, sat on the edge of the bed, and for the first time in months, I let myself breathe. I didn't cry. There were no tears left. Just exhaustion, the kind that seeps into your bones when you've carried too much for too long. I fell asleep with the lamp still on and woke up to sunlight leaking through torn curtains. For a split second, I forgot everything. Then it hit me. I was free. Over the next few weeks, I got a small apartment closer to work. I changed my number, stopped checking social media, and told only a few close friends what happened. Megan called at first, voicemails filled with shaky apologies, then anger, then silence. I didn't mean what I said. She'd whisper in one. I was grieving, but I never called back. I'd spent years forgiving words that should have never been spoken. I learned how to live again slowly. I'd make breakfast in silence, sit on my balcony with coffee, and actually watch the sunrise instead of rushing through another day of emotional survival. There was peace in small things, uncluttered rooms, my own reflection not haunted by her disappointment. The sound of quiet that didn't hurt anymore. One evening, I caught myself smiling for no reason. That's when I realized I hadn't escaped a marriage. I'd escaped a prison I didn't even know I'd built around myself. It's been 8 months since I walked out that door. 8 months since I left behind the version of myself who thought love meant endurance, even when it hurt. Life feels different now. Quieter, softer. I wake up early, make my own coffee, and sit by the window just to watch the world come alive. I never realized how peaceful silence could be when it isn't filled with tension. I started therapy not long after leaving. At first, I didn't know what to say. I kept insisting I was fine. But as the sessions went on, I started unpacking the truth. I wasn't fine. I'd been surviving on guilt and self-blame for years. I'd convinced myself that if I worked harder, loved deeper, forgave faster, things would fix themselves. But you can't fix someone who uses your love as a weapon. Megan reached out once more, an email, long and apologetic, saying she'd been in a dark place and that Daniel's death made her lose herself. I didn't reply. Not because I hated her, but because I finally understood that closure doesn't come from hearing sorry. It comes from realizing you don't need it anymore. Some nights, I still think about the man I used to be, the one who believed in forever, even when forever turned cruel. But I don't resent him. He loved deeply, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. Pain didn't destroy me. It refined me. Last weekend, I took a long drive along the coast. The sky was bruised with sunset colors, and the ocean stretched endlessly beside me. I rolled down the window, felt the wind on my face, and whispered to myself, "You made it."
Ow.
And for the first time, I believed it. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't anger or payback, it's peace. The kind that comes when you finally choose yourself and never look back.